session that we're going to be talking about our Data Culture Academy with the Gardner Institute that will be starting in July, so in a little over a month here. If we advance the slide, Brittany. So, for those of you who may not know the Gardner Institute, we are now a 26-year-old, almost 27-year-old, nonprofit organization that is based in Brevard, North Carolina. This is our mission statement that you see here. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. But what it really comes down to is that we partner directly with colleges, universities, individuals on campuses, as well as philanthropic organizations to help institutions improve their student success on campus. And with the ultimate goal of helping more students ultimately earn a high-level credential and lead fulfilling lives. I'm going to advance this slide, Britt. You already had our introductions, but Lahia and I will be the primary speakers today about the Data Culture Academy, and we are the primary instructors, I guess, facilitators for the Academy and the community of practice that come with it. So should you decide to join us, you'll get to see a lot of us over the next year. So I can talk a little bit about why we decided to launch the Data Culture Academy. Go ahead and bounce back one, Brittany, sorry. So there are a couple reasons why this came out. So all of you at Thomas More, I hope at least two of you know, you are a part of our transformation process, but maybe all of you know that. And those institutions that are in our transformation process begin all of their efforts around a sense-making process where we talk about where we want to prioritize efforts on campus. And as we've been working through those sense-making conversations with our institutional partners, we often see that data literacy, data infrastructure, communication around data are all things that tend to be items that pop up as challenges on campuses. Also know from my history within IR and IE as well as Lahia's that it is often a challenge for many campuses in terms of a lot of campuses have a lot of data available, but don't fully know how to share it or have the infrastructure to share it or where focus should be at, or providing data literacy training to allow the campus to be much more data informed. And so that really sparked our decision to move forward with creating this academy and community of practice to help institutions talk about those issues around their data environment and help build better data informed campuses. And Dr. Perez, I'm not sure if there's anything you want to add to any of that.
Basically that's kind of like a lot of the institutions have participated in the Institutional Transformation Assessment Survey. Those are the results that we're seeing is one of those areas that are scored the lowest, as Dr. Drake has indicated. And also that maybe some parts of the organization may be more aware of it, but at large, most of the individuals, at least in the survey, are not aware of. So it might be an issue of awareness and training on how to use the data.
Now we can advance the slide. So when we're talking about the Data Culture Academy, what is it that we mean? It is a year-long community of practice that begins with 6 modules on the front end that are, you can think of them as like a course where we talk about some of the fundamental elements of building out a data-informed organization. As you progress through those modules, you'll will work with our inquiry guide to figure out where you feel you want to do work on campus to improve your data informed organization yourself. And then ultimately, when we get through those modules, everyone will pick a project that they're going to work on within the community of practice over the rest of the year. Where people will look at some part of their environment, say, this is what we want to improve upon, and spend the rest of the year in the community of practice working on that. And when we talk about building out a better data informed organization, what we really mean for that from the Gardner Institute is that you have the existing infrastructure that allows your faculty, your staff at really all levels of your institution to be able to access the data they need to deliver around student success within their positions. You will notice with Gardner, we focus everything around student success. That includes having a governance structure and a data literacy training structure that allows for the best high quality use of that information. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Perez, and she's going to talk a little bit more about the teams that you will have participate in this, and a little more of that structure of the modules in the community of practice.
Next, please. Thank you, Brittany. So when we are working with the different institutions, we suggest for the institution to create a team of between 5 to 10 members that will include a director of IR or institutional effectiveness or similar roles, representatives from both academic and student affairs, and hopefully representatives that can make some decisions on behalf of those areas of the institution. An IT leader, at least one faculty member will be ideal, more than one faculty member, and other staff and faculty that are considered data champions because they're actually using the data, even though there might not be in roles of making decisions for everybody, but they are supporting other ones. And the Data Culture Academy, the hope of this is that you will gain insights on how an institution can build a sustainable model for data-informed decision-making, specifically, as Dr. Drake said, around student success. And your institution will be defining what is student success. You will be assessing the current state, where the data might be, and what will be the next steps to advance student success, particularly in data literacy and data for decision making. Next, please. As Brent indicated, we have 6 modules. The first 3 months, there are going to be 2 modules per month, and each one is 90 minutes long. You're going to be working on self-assessment to evaluate the current state of the data usage and support. You're going to be identifying the next steps, to basically to advance and sustain the data usage. And at the end of those 6 modules, you want to select a feasible project related to any of those 6 modules. And of course, during the process, you'll be sharing and receiving feedback from other institutions. The first module, you want to define what is student success within your institution, either because the institution has already published a definition of student success, or there might be different definitions of student success in different units of the university, but you want to bring all this together and consolidate. And in some cases, there might be institutions that do not have a published definition of student success. And maybe we've seen some institutions that have taken upon their feasible project to define student success and then bring it up all the way to the president provost level for being implemented as the definition of student success on their campus. Alongside, you're going to identify which are the success measures. And remember, it is about student success. And once you define it, those metrics might be in your strategic plan or any other places within your institution. So it will be pretty much mapping where that data would be. And that's in module 3. You will identify, besides the typical students information systems or the registrar or systems within academic affairs or student affairs that has some data that not necessarily is, again, data that is like retention or graduation that you cannot do anything about it. They're just statistics that you want to make sure that they are leading indicators of student success, so that within the first term or the first year is data that is actionable so that the students can be provided with support before they actually become any statistics. At the same time, which is in module 4, and is related to the organization's data roles, persona, who needs what information and what level and what type of access is going to be giving all that. It's kind of like very complex because it had to do with data governance. It's very broad, and some institutions decided just to take a fraction or part of it rather than everything in it. In module 5, once you have developed at least what are the roles and what kind of data, it will be data literacy for all those different roles and what kind of data they are going to need and how you're going to train or develop training or working with consortium with other units within the institution to create data literacy for the institution. And the last module is to basically engage all stakeholders in the institution, like developing a communication plan and how it's going to be marketed, this project that you're going to be engaged, or in general, what it means to have a communication or marketing plan within the institution related to student success. Next, please. So these are some examples of, this is 2 cohorts that have created different types of projects. So one institution decided to establish data governance task force, and some of them will be engaged in data literacy definitions, audit existing data that is available or not available and needed, and build an initial data dictionary. Others have created a survey to determine users' data literacy and usage need. At the same time, others already have something like that, and they go in a data road shows to actually the stakeholders' office or meetings for deans, advisors, or faculty. Some other institutions have built a unified academic advising dashboard. Others have created the governance structure, and others have created committees to be built into the college governance, depending on how complex that might be. Next, please. So with this, I'll transfer to Brittany.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say before we pass over to Brittany to talk about when the meetings are and things of that nature, that you'll notice from the previous slide that a lot of the institutions wind up focusing their efforts around governance and data literacy programs. That's not unexpected because we see that is oftentimes where institutions haven't built as much formal structure around those 2 areas. Oftentimes they, as a part of that, will build out a data dictionary as a part of those efforts. So we see a lot of that. But you can see that this can be used in multiple ways. For instance, we have that one instance of one of our institutions that decided to take this time to really look at their underlying infrastructure for having a unified dashboard for their advising community to use that pulled data sources from 5 or 6 different systems that had separate reporting environments and put it in a unified place for their advising community. So it really is meant to be a wide range of the type of projects you can work on in the space. Just those first 6 modules that we do, a big part of it is you determining, hey, this is where we feel like we need to make some efforts, and also what we think we can realistically do over the remaining 9 months of the community of practice to get that to move forward.
Yes, and I'm just gonna add another another point about what you just said, Brent, that some institutions at the beginning, even within the first 5 or 6 modules, they have such a big idea of what they want to do, but once they start actually trying to think all through everything that they might have to do, they narrow it down to maybe just what you said, just the data dictionary, and they have taken a whole year and they're not done to do it. So it's something that maybe that is more feasible, even though it's smaller, but it's foundational for the rest of what is needed. Yes, thank you. And thank you, Brittany, for allowing me to talk a little bit before you.
Oh, sure. I think we covered most of this for the next steps, but just to restate it, the community starts on July 16th, and this is a year-long community. And the registration for this is pretty simple since I think you are all in transformation schools. You just let your relationship manager know, and they will get you enrolled with your team.
I do know Molly from Cincinnati State is not actually a transformation school, but Molly, there's a registration link, I believe, on the website. Is that
Yes,
correct?
there is a very short registration form for anyone who is not a part of one of those transformation schools. It's just a pretty simple form to kind of figure out if this is the right fit for you. Um, Nothing too long, not really an evaluation, and that will be in the email that's included in this recording after the session. And it's also available on our website.
You can see the link for our website for specifically the Data Culture Academy that Brittany is providing here. And as she mentioned, we will send out a copy of the recording from the session to everyone who registered. So with that, you'll see contacts for Brittany and Katie to ask questions about it, but you can also reach out to Lahia and I. Lahia is Perez at Gardner Institute. I'm Drake at GardnerInstitute.org. With both of those, we're always happy to answer questions. However, we have quite a bit of time left here, with the goal of opening it up for any questions or discussion you would like to have about what we're trying to do in the academy, what the process is like, what some of the institutions have done with it. We're happy to talk about any or all of that. So we will turn the floor over to you. And I will also say we have enough time. If there's something you want to ask that you don't really want to be in a recording for everybody, we can end a little bit early and allow for that as well. So please hang around if that is the case. But otherwise, we'll open it up for you now.
Can I ask where the modules came from?
From our work. So it was a process where Lahia, Joe Robinson Kramer from the Gardner Institute, Corey Classman, who was at Gardner at the time, but is now president of South Dakota Technical College, I believe. I'm getting that right, Lahia.
Yeah.
And had also been involved in the IR community previously as well. We went through looking at some of the materials that are out there from places like AIR, EDUCAUSE, other various spots in terms of what they felt were key practices around building a data-informed organization. And we talked about what we felt were the fundamental building blocks of getting there, and then built out the modules for that from it. All of that information lives in our learning management system. So each of those modules is a combination of asynchronous time where we ask you to go out and look at some of the materials that are out there already, videos, readings, things of that nature. And then during our synchronous meetings, we do a little bit of summary of that, and then have a little bit of discussion and allow for work time for each of the campuses to work through the information guide to help build out what they think their projects might want to do. There are some self-assessment guided questions for it within that guide. So that's kind of the structure of the modules. One thing that is definitely, I feel, a little unique to us and we felt was very necessary to put in, because you don't see it in a lot of places, is the communication plan portion of it. In IR, we have a tendency to often believe that if we build it, they will come. And we know that does not really work in terms of data literacy and building a really broad data-informed organization, as opposed to having 9 or 10 core power users that you love them because they'll talk to you all the time, but it doesn't really help spread that information broadly. So we talk about how you can do that, both in terms of data literacy training, but more importantly, having a routine communication cycle about the training, about governance, about how you get access, about how you can learn from it, and some of your standard reporting that you want to push around campus so over time. So that's why that's one of our modules within.
I just want to add a little bit more about we also research the literature as well in both the higher education space, the business space, and the IT space to kind of understand more of where we want to position this type of academy. Of course, we bring forth the technology, the infrastructure. Most of higher ed institutions already have some kind of basic infrastructure, like the in student information systems, the registrar, the systems that are within the student affairs that not always kind of have a linkage to share data and to make possible these reports that will have data about the students. It's basically student-centered approach to the data culture, because in general, IT thinks of systems. So how do we bring forth that part? So it's a combination of different sources and based on research too.
Thank you.
No problem. Thanks for asking, Kim.
Yeah. And we use the Brightspace, and each module has we have a syllabus, and it has a guide to help you all throughout the 6 modules. So by the time you're done with the 6th module, if you want to use that, it's sort of like you've already created a format to continue into the next 9 months.
Other questions folks might have?
I have a question. I'm not sure if this is something, this feels like a question that would be answered in the course, and so I'm not sure. I think that my experience of helping people to think about data in particular ways, and some other things that feel related to that as we're doing faculty development, staff development, things like that. Having somebody at the same institution try to explain that and try to do the training can come across as, I'm going to say, not convincing, or it's too associated with the personality of the individual, and it's not communicated necessarily in a way that people across campus want to hear it. And so I'm wondering if the course helps us understand, find external resources and understand how to communicate things in a way that people are willing to listen to, willing to adopt, that can be heard by them from their perspective, that type of thing.
So we do provide some links to external resources throughout all of the modules in terms of examples and readings and things of that nature. We also try, in particular with what you're talking about, Joe, around a lot of that data literacy training. We provide a lot of examples of what we think are some good practices that we see out there in terms of how institutions are presenting it. I will freely admit every one of those that we talk about, it is an institution developed and pushed, but trying to talk about different ways you can think about approaching it to allow for it to be a more meaningful conversation and training with your users on campus. Lahia talked about in the slide of some of the results that the survey that one of our institutional partners built, which was entirely focused around their data literacy program. What they decided to do to try and get at that a little bit was they did a pre-survey before any training session that they would do with the departments that were going to come to it, to gather information about what the greatest needs those users felt they had in the space, and then they would customize that training a little bit towards the feedback on it. Because this was an institution that has a ton of resources, has, I want to say, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 100 dashboards sitting out there that users can use. And so a lot of it was confusion on their users' end. And so they really wanted to focus on, okay, what are the core things you need to know, and let's tailor this to allow that to occur. So that is one of the things we actually talk about in our examples in the course now, because we really thought it was a very good approach for trying to come at that a little bit more from the campus.
So I feel like my question's a little bit different. So let me change the way I'm saying it and see if you have a different thing to say. So my background in math and physics encourages me to think about numbers in a particular way.
Mm-hmm.
Psychologists think about statistics in a different way than I think about statistics, but we can communicate well. Humanities people think about numbers differently. Administrators think about numbers differently. Institutional research thinks about numbers differently. And when we're a small enough school that we can't have training for each of those audiences, it would be all of them in the same room. And I'm not sure that we currently communicate about how we should be thinking about numbers in a way that's useful to everybody. And we tend to talk to one audience, and not everybody is hearing that. And then we talk to a different audience, and not everybody is hearing that. And I don't know how to help everyone communicate about numbers in a way that most of the people in the room can hear.
Interesting, because even though I'm a data person, I don't necessarily think that data is only numbers. It might be data visualization, and
That's absolutely true.
why
Yes.
a lot of IRs and that have dashboards that will be a visual representation of the data. It could be qualitative, it could be quantitative. And I think that the framing is not so much about the numbers or the data, but what is the need for information that an individual in the humanities or in math, on the STEM, that they have in order to help their students succeed. And that perhaps might be as a way of looking at what you're saying about the numbers, that each one may have a different way of interpreting numbers or data, but they all might have within their space a need to know what the students need in order for the individual to make a change in the success of those students. And dashboard have become the common language for interpreting or at least displaying the data. That could be numbers for some. It might be just, putting a bar chart. For others, might be just putting a table because some people like to see numbers. But it is about this is the information that you might need because of your students, and what can you think about from this that you can do in order to help the students succeed. So I would say that I'm just thinking about your project could be data literacy training, that you would have a committee of all groups from each one of those different spaces or units within the institution, that they can come up with what will be the best way to assist using those numbers.
And so I'll just add kind of two things in that space, Joe. One is that related to what Lydia is saying, we do try and ground it a lot around what is necessary for helping the students succeed on campus, and also talking about it in terms of what people's positions and roles are on campus, and how you do need to do a little bit of differentiation between those. I know what you're saying in terms, you'll get a lot of those different people in the same room sometimes, and so it's hard to land. But you got to think about how you differentiate it to the roles a little bit on campus. And the last part I will say towards it is one thing we advocate for on each of the campuses. This should not be something that just lives within IT or IR. You should use campus resources around this to help with this. So in terms of when we think about the work we do on curricular redesign and course redesign at Gardner Institute as well, a lot of that oftentimes is embedded in mindset changes for faculty with it, because faculty have been trained in their discipline to know the knowledge very, very well. Except for a few faculty members in certain disciplines, almost none of them have pedagogical training on the most effective way to deliver that information to their students. And so some of that is mindset training. IR and IT also has had almost none of that pedagogical training as well. And so we talk about, and one of the examples we use, UNLV, one of my former campuses, I can say their name because they're not a member of the community that's come through. They have just talked to some of our cohorts before and have been a resource for us. One of the things they have done is leverage their instructional designers in their distance education space and helping them build out their data literacy program to help them around some of those pedagogical practices to better deliver that message to different learners, different parts of the organization, different roles that exist within it. So we talk about that as well, and trying to leverage some more of those resources on campus to make it more effective. I don't know if that totally gets at what you're wanting, Joe. I know there will always be challenges in that space, but I think of it as being very similar to the challenges you see within a classroom as well, and how you got to be adaptive to allow that to be most effective.
And Joe, if I can add a little bit, because maybe you are kind of hinting at the political sphere rather than the actual numbers. In my past, in one of the institutions, I pretty much created bridges with those individuals that they were sort of like the champions of different sects within the organization, and they help bring together all those different sections, or at least accept, yes, we have a new, in my case, was a new system for assessment. And so they were very resistant for maybe a couple of years. And once we build that, I guess, coalition of the willing from the different factions, and of course, the institution was put on probation, so the situation kind of was the most pertinent to move forward, and so perhaps it's more bringing those ones, the coalition of the willing, that they will bring all these groups, and maybe if it is like, oh, this is STEM trying to impose on, the liberal arts, just, have this group be the kind of the leaders of the process. That way it's not an individual, but a group that represents all of them.
Yeah, thank you. I do want to say I was using the word numbers. I am thinking of data as more broad than that. I did not really intend to be
I understood what you said, though.
that limiting. Right. I just want to acknowledge my bias, and my word choice was not really
I
the
have it too.
idea I was trying to communicate. I do think that all of your responses here are addressing the thing I'm concerned with, certainly some of the political bit. And I just really, I think, am asking if there's room for that conversation in the class and how much. And I feel like you both addressed that it would be in there, and that that would be something to talk about. I am a little concerned that the size of our school means that the coalition of the willing is really the only set who are willing, and enabling them to encourage other people is something we've struggled with a little bit, so that we have one person here and one person here, and the other people around them say, oh, go ahead, you take care of that. So I don't know that we need to discuss it too much more. I feel like you've addressed my concerns, and I don't know that I have other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Any other questions from participants who would like to answer? Molly, Jacob, anything you would want to ask?
I do not have any questions at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Well, this is not a, speak now or forever hold your peace. So mentioned our email addresses, mentioned the additional information that'll come to you. Please, please, please reach out if you have any additional questions. We're more than happy to answer them, or if there's any additional material you would like to see related to it, we're more than happy to provide it. So just let us know. Otherwise, as I said, Leah and Brittany and I will hang around here for a couple minutes in case there was something you wanted to ask that you didn't want to be on a recording. So we're happy to hang around and do that. And also, I will specifically ask Kim if you can hang around a couple minutes, because I actually have another question to you, not related directly to the Data Academy. So, all right. Thank you, everyone, and we hope that you'll be joining us in July. And otherwise, it was good to meet all of you that haven't met yet, and hope that this was informative for you. So thank you all.
Yes, thank you so much for your time.